I'm a storyteller. I started by telling a story. George mentioned a couple years ago on a bright September sunny day, a bunch of us decided to, for months working on sleeping in a park. That park was called Zuccotti. We renamed it Liberty Square, and it was the start of what we call Occupy Wall Street. For months and months and months, we slept in the park, and well, at least I did 3 weeks because after a while it's a little bit pressing. And we were fighting for economic inequality, but we were fighting for all inequalities, right? The simple message of math, 99 to 1, was what we were bringing to the table. We had enough. And we were at the heart of it all, Wall Street. I'm originally from New York, if you couldn't tell. But I relocated to Atlanta, Georgia 3 months ago because I do believe in a new Southern strategy, especially in the political world. So in the story about Occupy, what was also happening was New York was facing a new mayoral election. There were a bunch of different candidates that were ready to go. Bloomberg's successor, Christine Quinn, who was anti-labor, more for the banks, more for the Real Estate Board of New York, which is our highest lobby in the state. We had folks like John Liu, all citywide candidates already, so it was a wide field. And groups were split. But because of the momentum that Occupy was able to have, and the effect of groups like the Working Families Party in New York, which we are also a political party actually here in South Carolina, started by the UAW, CWA, and community organizations like the former ACORN and Citizen Action New York. But we put out the narrative that we needed issues come first, and that issues matter. So we started talking about paid sick days, universal pre-K, and anti-stop and frisk, which is a legislation in New York that the NYPD have used for years. And I can tell you more about it later because it really sucks. However, because Bill de Blasio, who is now the mayor of New York, had our platform and was talking about these specific issues, he was able to win the Democratic primary and become the mayor of New York. And the reason I say that is because we have a really, really broken political system right now. We have a two-party system, which, if we go into the history books, parties were always newly created to fix and to address the things that we needed. In Mississippi, 50 years ago, they created the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party while they were doing Freedom Summer because they wanted them to be seated, black people to be seated at the Democratic National Convention in Atlantic City that year. So political parties are not a new thing. The reason I talk about this story is because we were able to create momentum years before that. People forget that we decided as a Working Families Party in New York, we wanted to have a progressive caucus, a block of city council people in the New York City Council that would vote together on our specific set of values and issues that matter to us. Because as I was just talking before with these great men from Savannah, Georgia, what do you hear candidates say often? Oh, well, higher education is a really big priority and we need to solve it. It's a really big issue. But what is that saying, right? Have you heard candidates say, oh, well, we definitely need to address income inequality, but then not have a platform? Yeah? Yeah? Have you heard candidates address many of issues and not actually have the legislation or the policy that we need to push it forward, right? Exactly. I see a lot of hands up. So the reason why I think the ballot is important to labor, and labor is important to the ballot, and organizing and movement building, is because we can shift the spectrum. So I don't know if folks, I'm trying to think. Everybody picture a line in their heads, right? Like if you have to close your eyes, you can close your eyes, but picture a line, right? We could use our panel for a second. I'm gonna use it for a second. I'm gonna call you Tea Partier. I'm really sorry. So, see, I'm really sorry, but this is all for effect. So we have George's Tea Party, right? We go over here, and it's not gonna get better. Republican. Sorry. And over here we have a Democrat, right? We have the Democrats, and we'll take the end of the table as the Working Families Party, right? If I cover up the Working Families Party and people don't know about it, who's in the middle? Who has the centerist of ideas right now? Republicans, right? of you very excited. The reason I say that is because we have these two parties that are made and created and have evolved into fighting for each other, and a lot of it is because what happened in the South, right? Because of the Civil Rights Act, because of the Southern strategy, right? There was an actual Southern strategy to make sure that the Republican Party had a stronghold in the South. You should read the 1971, the Lewis Powell memo, because it goes into how big business, how the South, how we took control of the South. So the reason I say that is because we need things, and we need vehicles like the Working Families Party, or we need vehicles like, well, not like the Tea Party, but a movement to talk about our issues, to pull the spectrum. Because if you shift the spectrum from the fringe, you pull it, it's like tug of war, right? You're pulling everything to the center. So right now in our country, the Republicans are the center. And issues and policy have been drawn to the center, right? Take healthcare, for instance, a great victory and something that was very needed, but it was shifted. It was shifted because of the rise of the Tea Party. It was shifted because of the radical right. So we need a radical left. We have a radical left, we just need us to grow. And the work that Working Families does is, we have a party, a battle line in South Carolina, but we are in New York, South Carolina, Oregon, Connecticut, and we use this thing called fusion voting. It is a system that actually used to be legal everywhere, and now is only legal about 8 states in the country. And that allows people to cross-endorse candidates that are on the ballot. So if I ran for governor, not running, but if I ran for governor, you can find me on the Democrat line and on the Working Families line. The reason that works, the reason that helps us out is because we can say that these issues matter, and we do, and if you don't stick to our issues, we won't endorse you again. Or we'll hold you accountable, right? I don't know if folks saw what happened in New York 2 months ago. I had my last day with the organization was going to the New York gubernatorial endorsement, and we had Cuomo to the very, very end. This is a Democrat who is nothing but, anything but, there you go, not nothing but he is anti-labor, he is for the real estate board, people have called him Governor 1%, but he's a legacy. His father was supposed to run on the Democratic for president, on the Democratic line, in primary. He's a legacy, he's born in that family. And we got him down to the wire, to the point where he said to us that you will get a local minimum wage raise, you will get paid 6 days statewide, you will get medical marijuana, well, that just happened, but you will get decriminalization of marijuana because we have some of the most draconian drug laws in the country in New York after the Rockefeller drug laws in the 70s. So we took him to that because we were actually going to challenge him with a candidate. And I say that because we have to start thinking a little bit like the Tea Party, but not too much. They primary Republicans. It's true, they primary Republicans. They don't focus too many efforts on actually challenging Democrats. If you look at the record, and if you look at all the races that they funded, that they supported, that they speak about, they look at primary races, because that's where you shift the spectrum. Because the Democrats and political operatives, I used to be one, are looking at the numbers and are looking at what is said, who all other voters are in the primaries, because that can change come the general elections. That is very well, we have the ability to change that. So it's important that we focus on primaries. It's important that we focus on grassroots candidates. And the reason I say that is because we see these same politicians over and over again, or we see their family members, and they have the same ideology, they come from the same block, right? We have to build our own block in this country and in the South. And the reason I also say why it's prime time for independent political alternative is because that divide is really strong down here, right? You have a lot of people who refuse to just vote on Democrat or Republican, right? You have a lot of people that just won't cross the other line, understandably so. So we need an alternative. We need a way to bring people into the fold and say that these are the issues, because people do agree on the issues. They might say it differently. I used to be a canvasser and knock on doors in the state. And to one person I would say, you believe the millionaires, should pay their fair share? We got a millionaire's tax? And they're like, yeah. Do you believe everybody should pay their fair share? Yeah. Two different things. The and saying everybody should pay their fair share. People still agreed with it. They saw the literature, but the slight change, because we are so ingrained in our, what is that word? Lord, it just slipped my mind. We're so ingrained in the talking heads and the rhetoric, there goes the word, that we actually don't understand that people actually have the same values. People want to see living wages, and we need to demand that, right? People want to see paid sick days for all, which is something that should be in our country, right? People want to see these progressive legislations. So I'll finish by saying this. There was also mention before, right before I came up, of what people call RAE, R-A-E. I don't like these terms, but the rising American electorate, which is really, I'm one of them, right? Women, people of color, Latinos, and Latinas, and a lot of people are paying attention to this, but where are they? Where's who thinks where the rising American electorate is in this country? Where's a high population of them? Can't hear it. The South, that is absolutely correct. The South is one of the most diverse regions. It has a lot of people of color, growing Latino population, and we need to focus on here because the rising American electorate is more diverse, it's more tolerant than generations past, especially this millennial generation that I'm a part of, and we need to organize because they're not just going to go vote. They're not just going to say, all right, let me just go to the vote. We need to make people vote by inspiring them with legislations and then holding those candidates accountable. So I hope that these conversations about organizing the South can continue to include what is the platform and who are the candidates, and that we need to train folks like you to run for office. So we have actual grassroots candidates that come from labor, that are pro-labor, that are pro-immigrant, that are pro-women, and that's all I gotta say. I believe that we will.